Hey guys, it's Ty from gamesfromthefront.com, and I wanted to take us through a run through of one of the Bloody April scenarios. Sounds like there's a lot of questions about this game, and I thought maybe by playing together we could learn a couple things. I make no claims that I know all the rules, but thought I'd get some of my efforts out there for feedback and see how I'm doing. I thought perhaps maybe over a series of, I don't know, 4 or 5, maybe 6 videos, can maybe get one of these scenarios in. I've got log sheets, I've got rule books, I've got dice, I've got pens, I've got sheets, a little bit of everything. I've got ADCs. So I'll be using some of the stuff here on the at my desk, but also primarily I'll be using the Vassal module. So this particular video will handle the setup or the prior to scenario setup steps. We'll be doing weather determination, ground planning, ground deployment, scenario planning, air deployment, and activation. So some of the more basic steps in setting up the game, of course, but probably worth running through together to see if we're all aligned on this. So let's start off with scenario weather determination. And of course, one of the first things we need to do is have a scenario. And like many folks have suggested, I chose one of the patrol scenarios as my starting scenario. In this particular case, I've got Bloody April Scenario 5. It's a patrol in March 1917. We've got the British are going to do some offensive patrols, and we've got the Germans set up to do some defensive scrambles. So really for the weather setup, weather determination, it's just a couple things that you need to point out. This is a March 16th scenario, and that's going to impact some of the rolls that we make. There's some randomness to the rolls that we do. So let's pull up our weather chart. First of all, that we're going to roll for is the actual weather itself. So here's our month column. I'm going to roll a die on my table here, and I've got a 4, which is mostly sunny. So I'm going to make note of that. We've got to roll for our wind. So again, down here on the March column or March row, I'm going to roll again. Oh, fell off the table. I've got a 5. So we've got 15-mile-an-hour winds. And interestingly, in this game, we've got winds coming out of the northwest, southwest, and northeast as the potential. So let's roll for those. And 4. So out of the northwest, 15-mile-an-hour wind out of the northwest. All right, the last roll on this chart is going to be dealing with clouds for our mostly sunny weather. So I'm going to roll a die. Let's take a look here, and I get a 5. So we're going to have to place a broken cloud marker in the weather box for low medium. And there was also one last scenario bit of information that we needed, and that's the time of day. So I'm going to roll the die for that, and I get a 3. And so it's going to be 6:30, and it's going to last. The game's going to last up to 45 turns. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my weather markers, and we'll take a look at how those look. Okay, we're back over here in the Vassal module, and I've taken a couple of seconds and dropped the counters into the game state window for the Vassal module from our weather rolls. So a couple things going on here. I mentioned the 45 turns that we've got in the game. I've gone ahead and typed in the date. The turn 1 marker is already set up. Here's the time of day sun marker for 6. Let's see, this band is 6 a.m. to 7:49 a.m. So we're starting at 6:30. So it's going to fall in there. Here's our 15-mile-an-hour wind coming out of the northwest, heading to southeast. And then because of our mostly sunny conditions, I was asked to put a broken cloud marker into the weather box. One thing I couldn't quite figure out is how to make this broken clouds happen between the low and medium altitudes. There's no flipping option, there's no relabeling, there's no additional counters up here, so hopefully some folks can help me figure that out. But anyway, I think that's the end of the weather determination phase. All right, normally in some scenarios we would have a ground planning phase next, but that ground planning phase is really for hidden AA concentrations, observation balloons, and ground unit placements. We don't have those in this scenario, so we will move on to the ground deployment phase, where both players will set up non-hidden AA. Okay, both the British and the Germans have some AA to set up. There are a handful of rules and restrictions about where the units can be set up from different hex groupings, and the combination of inactive, we've got a handful of, or I guess one medium and 4 light for each. So I'm going to take a second and go ahead and set up my AA. All right, I've done my ground deployment phase for both sides. Each side has 3 light AA and 1 medium AA. And part of the scenario requirements or rules was that they were all set up as inactive. So after placing them, I flipped them. So I've got 8 different total AA units that are set up as inactive. Okay, well, we're back over to our scenario information. We're in the scenario planning phase. We're going to determine our targets, plot target hexes for taskings as required, and fill out some log sheets. So the actual part about plotting target hexes is pretty much determined for us. We've got some information here for the British and their offensive patrols, the route that they're going to take, and I imagine this is the altitude that they have to maintain across that route, either medium +0 or low +6. There's a special note here for a tasking note that indicates that some of the hexes could be either the starting point or the end point, so they could go either direction. I'm not going to do any endurance rules, but the flight sizes for the 25th Squadron and the 43rd Squadron, as denoted by this double X, the flight sizes are random using this information down here. So let's roll 1 die for the 25th Squadron. That's a 4. That means there's going to be 4 aeroplanes. And for the 43rd, a 5. So both of them are going to have 4 aeroplanes. Let me make a quick note of that. All right, for the Germans, we have something similar to do. Germans are going to roll on the German scout availability for flight size and type. So let's flip all the way to the end of the rule book. Let's see, it's page 40, I believe. All right, so we've got our scout availability. We're in March. Our first Jasta is, let's see, 4, 11, and 30. So let's take a look. All right, so 4 is going to be a 1. So it's a halb D2. And I'm going to roll for the size, the bottom table. It's a 4, a 3. Roll a 4, it's going to be a 3. For Jasta 11, roll a 4. So it's also going to be a halb D2. Its size is going to be 6. So it's going to be 4. And I think the last one was 30. Going to roll for that. A 1. So also halb. So no albatrosses. And I rolled a 4. That's going to be a size 3. Okay, so I think I've got enough information here, so I'm going to take a second and fill out some log sheets. All right, I've gone ahead and filled out the British and German log sheets, and I have the British log sheet in front of me. This is one side set up for the aircraft, and the flip side is, in this case, my anti-aircraft guns. It's actually quite a bit of information they're trying to fit in this space here, so that combination of limited space and my horrible handwriting makes this a little bit messy, but we've got some information over here for each individual flight. So this is the 25th Squadron. On the map, I'll be using counter number 1. Got the aircraft type, so we've got our FE-2Bs. I rolled for aggression on a table. I think these were regular. This is a regular flight. The log sheet itself here calls this a gun rating, but I think what they really mean is firepower, which is the way it's listed on the ADCs. As I was learning the rules, I wasn't quite sure what the damage rating was, but it probably doesn't belong here. This is probably specifically reserved for the firepower rating. Ammo information, and as I mentioned, these flights are doing some of the offensive tasks. The other squadron is the 43rd Squadron. It's going to use the number 2 counter on the map. Since I'm playing solo, I'm not going to use any dummies, but you could also put dummy information in here as well. On the flip side, we've got information for our AA. I think this is really just record keeping in case you were using dummies. All the information that you really need is already on the board as far as your light and medium AA, so not really a whole lot of information, so probably a little bit more useful. This log sheet would be a little bit more useful on some of probably the larger scenarios with some of the more complex rules. And did the same thing. So this is the German log sheet, and we've got the JASTA 4, JASTA 11, JASTA 30, some roles for aggression, scramble tasks. We've got their AAs, so pretty much all set on the log sheets. All right, our logs are filled out. Our units or flights are chosen with aggression and some other statistics. So our flights are set. So now we're on to the air deployment phase, where both sides set up flights at readiness at aerodomes or in the air if allowed. So there's actually a stipulation in this scenario that German flights may not take off until a British flight is detected or enters a trench line. So the German flights are going to be starting the scenario grounded. And so I've gone ahead and set up the Germans here. They're going to aerodome there, and Thalempin here. So we've got 2 Jastas down here and 1 up here. Germans are starting on the ground. The British actually have an option, and there's a rule for starting in the air within 3 hexes of your aerodome. So here at Losingham, we've got 1 British flight, and the aerodome for Trezen is actually off the map, and so those flights start off in 901 or 801. So between that combination, we can actually have both British flights start on top of each other and are in the same hex. And one of the stipulations for completing the mission was flying at low +6 or medium +6. So we're going to start this set of flights, stacked flights in the air at low +6. I'm going to put that marker down. So that's the end of the air deployment phase, and the last step in setup is activation phase, where both players may activate any AA concentrations. I haven't gotten in the rules far enough to know what the advantage or disadvantage of being inactive is. I know that there are certain situations where AA can become active from an inactive state. So I think for now we're going to leave everybody inactive, and that will complete the prior to scenario setup. So hopefully this is helpful, and with the next video we can actually get started with our missions. Thanks for watching.